Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you all, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Y'ello Chair, your link to the African continent. Now, for today, we are going to be talking about all things, all manner of telecommunications within the African context. We are at MTN's headquarters in Fairlands, Johannesburg, and we're going to be talking to their group CEO, that is Ralph Mupita, just talking about what's happened in terms of financial performance recently. They just put out their earnings for the first 6 months of 2025, but we're also going to look more broadly what's happening in telecoms, what's happening on the African continent, what's happening in the geopolitical space, what's happening in the technology space, what's happening around digital inclusion. So joining me, as I said, is Ralph Mupita. He is the CEO. But I think for today, somewhat unusually, I can say, Ralph, thank you for inviting me to be the first host,
Thank you.
of the Y'ello Chair. Are you well?
I'm well, Mudiwa, and how about you?
No, I always say that I'm alive, good, well, and thriving.
What's keeping you busy?
You guys are keeping me busy.
We're keeping you busy.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about MTN.
Okay, where I want to start is you just put out your
Yes.
financial results. Before I get into the actual financial performance of MTN, right? I understand that this is your 16th or so set of results that you've sort of in various capacities because you were CFO
Before,
before,
that's right.
now you're CEO.
That's right.
How would you say you've done, through that 8 year period?
Yeah, look, I mean, coming to MTN was not on my original path of career, and I
Yeah.
often say to people that as you're growing and developing as a person, often plans. It's life is a series of plan Bs. Huh? You have a plan A, another opportunity comes. That opportunity is like plan B. Yeah, but that's life. You just have to have a plan, but be maximum flexible. And so, as you say, I joined MTN actually on the 3rd of April 2017.
Yeah.
Just after MTN was recovering from the 2015 SIM registration fine in Nigeria.
Yeah.
And as you say, I started off as CFO, and then I became the group CEO. So when I look at sequentially, it's kind of 16 set of results. And as I look back at them, all the results that we've had, when you look at the financial, operational, commercial performance, this set is a standout on many measures. Just the quality of the earnings, the quality of the cash flows, and just the momentum we're seeing across the business. And I was saying to my colleagues that as I look at all the data and the performance we've achieved, thanks to the people of MTN, I say the first half for us was really about progress, momentum, and resilience.
Yeah.
And I think the resilience part is super important because if you think about the backdrop under which we deliver these results, there's a lot of volatility and uncertainty. Huh?
Yeah.
And very proud of the 17,000 MTNers who have worked hard supporting our customers to deliver these results. So, as you say, the best set of financial results, certainly for me in the last 16 reporting periods, 8 years I've been here.
Because of, I guess, that experience, what do you think is maybe can I call it the standout for a period of results like this? And when I say standout, I mean, is it the fact that we're seeing that recovery coming through from a Nigeria, a Ghana? Is that what makes these the best results or a standout? Is it necessarily earnings and margins? Like, what is it exactly? Is it okay, we were at the bottom and now we seem to be, coming back up? Like, what characteristically makes it the best set of results for you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess when you look at results, there's always two driving forces, I believe, around when you look at the quality of the results. Now, there's kind of the operational execution.
Yeah,
How are we executing on our plans? And then there's the macro.
yeah,
I would say that at MTN, the operational execution is always at a very high level. So even in this 8 years, when you look under the hood, you kind of strip out the macro,
yeah,
the quality of how the teams at MTN across all our markets, we have a really set of competitive individuals. I think of MTN as almost having a missionary zeal about this thing of digital and financial inclusion. I say to people, sometimes it feels like it's too hard to work here unless you really believe in the mission of driving digital and financial inclusion. So the people at MTN, I think, are the magic, and they're the ones that are driving this operational execution. So that's the one part. And then you look at the macro. So what is a standout in this period is that operational execution, which has always been there, even last year when we were having our challenges in Nigeria, the quality of the execution was never in doubt for me.
Yeah.
If I think about Nigeria, because I see the indicators of the quality of the execution, and obviously you can do better here and there. There's always something to improve on, but that's always been sustained. What is different now is that the macro has been a bit more benign and actually supportive of the overall financial results. Nigeria, the currency is pretty stable, inflation's coming down,
Yeah.
the Dangote refinery is there, oil production's improving, central bank operations are working well, willing buyer, willing seller. That's Nigeria,
Yep.
which is a big market. Ghana actually had the cedi appreciate, something we don't normally see,
Yeah.
quite strong appreciation of the cedi with the dollars. So I guess in this environment, actually, gold has done well, and they sell a lot of gold out of Ghana, supported the currency, but the operational execution was always there. South Africa, the macro has been fairly stable, but I think it's been quite challenging for us in our home market, to be clear,
Yeah.
particularly around the prepaid. So cumulatively, what has come through in H1 is the execution's there, the macro is supportive, and that's why the quality of the results. And, really proud of what the team have done, and continue to do, because we can't stop right now.
When you're in a position like yours, right, I tend to think that the leaders of multinational organizations, you almost have to become an economist in a way, right? Because you have to look at these macro factors, like you said. So much of it is tied to, the macro that's
Yeah.
out there, and that's had a huge impact, on your business, either based on your own observations or whatever your team
Yeah.
and your research is telling you. How fundamental do you think that macro stability is? Because I think when you look at, I guess, doing business on the continent, right, there'll be some thinking to say, is it really stable? Have we reached that stable? Because I know, for example, for the naira, we are expecting that the outlook is maybe 1,500 to 1,800, to the dollar. And there might be some angst
Yeah.
in the market to be like, is this really fundamentally, a stable point that we've reached, or could we perhaps have one or two headwinds down the line?
It's an interesting point you ask about, how the CEO of a multinational must think. I mean, I think there are many dimensions, but I'll comment on a few. You're right. You have to have an appreciation of economics
Yeah.
and understanding the data that affects how you run your business. I think the other big thing that you really have to focus on as a CEO is trying to understand supply chains and how the supply chains affect you. I think you also have to be a bit of a politician. I'm just a simple engineer, or at least that's how I see myself. But you've got to understand the geopolitics, because the geopolitics affects the economy, affects supply chains, affects the markets you operate in. So you have to have those kind of skill sets, and have people around you who advise you
Yeah.
in that. But specifically, back to your point, I look at the macro data, I look at GDP growth, I look at where are currencies going, what is the expectations, what are the things that move currencies.
Yeah.
You think about Nigeria, if oil goes down to 50, surely the naira will weaken,
Yeah.
but maybe it might not. But you've got to think about that. What are the second order effects, or what are the drivers of currency? Because currency is a big thing. We have tower contracts, and they interface with currency movements.
Huge. Yeah.
So any group CEOs has to really think about the interaction of, as I said, geopolitics, macroeconomics, supply chains, and the second order effects of all of that.
Yeah.
Before you even think about, okay, I've got to put a tower up, I've got to put radio equipment out, and so forth. Because if you don't understand those, I often say that the macro can actually be sometimes more important than your business model
Yeah.
over the long. But I think the other thing that, when you're a leader of a multinational, your horizon and thinking must be the long term, making decisions that are right in the long term. And the short term, you'll suffer some pain potentially,
Yeah.
but stay focused on the long term.
Yeah.
Because, if you keep the long term in view, you will generally make the right decisions, and so forth.
Okay. As MTN, you've been on a road for a while. When I say on a road, I mean a path. We called it Ambition 2025.
Yep.
And I always tell people that it's quite fascinating that you guys have 5 listed entities.
Yeah.
The group, Ghana, Nigeria, Rwanda, and Uganda. And you see Ambition 2025 across,
Yeah.
but we are in 2025.
Yeah, that's right.
And part of the curiosity now is what happens beyond 2025. What's driving your strategy now? Based on what we've just spoken about now,
Yeah.
that you're considering the macro, you're considering supply chains, you're considering your various growth drivers. You're almost at 300 million,
Yeah.
customers.
Getting there.
Right? How are you thinking about life beyond Ambition 2025?
Yeah, look, we are always thinking near term, mid term, long term as we do our strategic planning and thinking about how we allocate capital. I think the thing that drives us first is this passion for the African continent
Yeah.
and our fundamental belief that part of Africa's growth and the realization of its potential is the power of digital solutions. Our framing and vision is driving, delivering digital solutions for Africa's progress.
Yep.
We're partnering the markets we're operating for progress. And progress is measured on many dimensions, and many of them kind of socioeconomic dimensions, better lives for people. We serve, the customer we serve, on average, we are earning $2 of revenue per month.
Yeah.
When I meet global CEOs in the developed world, they're talking $50, $80.
Yeah.
So, we see that our people have desires for better lives and the digital infrastructure and digital solutions. So when we step back and we look next 5 years is the demand for data and fintech services, we see a structural growth trend still to come. I often tell the story that when I first joined the Nigeria board in 2017, I saw the average usage per customer was 500 MB. Today it's 14 gigabytes.
Wow.
That's in 7 years. So there's this surge of demand as people, use the internet for their own kind of productivity, their own lifestyles. This demand is, we're not even halfway there
Yeah.
in rolling out the infrastructure for that. And then on the fintech services, similarly, there are many Africans who don't yet have access to decent financial services. So we're driving a financial inclusion approach to our fintech strategy. So these are the two engines that we see that will be structural for the next 5 years. And we're arranging ourselves around what we call the 3 platforms.
Yeah.
Connectivity, how do people use connectivity operations? How do you access the internet, whether you're a consumer or you're a business, and so forth? How are you consuming, services at home?
Yeah.
So that's all comes under the connectivity pillar. Then obviously fintech, and we have an ambition, to try and include as many people as we can. We're not trying to be a big bank. We're not trying to be a universal bank. We look at fintech with the lens of financial inclusion.
Yeah.
The people who don't have access are the customers we seek. And then digital infrastructure for us is super important because these data workloads that over time are going to grow 4x in the next 3-4 years. 4x. there's infrastructure that it needs, fiber,
Yeah.
data centers,
Yeah.
and so forth.
Yeah.
So those are the three pillars: connectivity, fintech, digital infrastructure. So that's how we see the business evolving in the next 5 years, and that's how we think about beyond 2025. And in the connectivity pillar, two big things that we're driving: accelerating owning the home.
Yeah.
We think workloads will move ultimately more to the home,
Yeah.
and making our products much more kind of digital native. We still have a lot of customers who are not yet using data capable devices. You just spoke about our customer base, almost 300 million. Probably just 50% of them are using data every day. So we have 150 million people who are still stuck in the voice era
Yeah.
that we want to push through by offering digital. So, yeah, so those are some of the components. And then obviously AI. I mean, we're all talking about AI as a foundational technology that's going to transform the way we think and live and work and so forth. So these are the things that we're beginning to think about, and then saying, do we have the right resources? Do we have the right people? Do we have the right skills? Do we have the right capital? And deploying for the next 5 years towards 2030. It's an exciting journey ahead, I must say to you, India.
No, I can imagine. And what I'm curious about is, as we look towards 2030,
Yeah.
right, how do you mark yourself on the previous five?
Look, I mean, I think we've done reasonably well. Huh?
Okay.
And I think we're hard on ourselves at MTN. I don't think anyone at MTN says, I've done well. You know, the other day, the chairman was saying to me, guys, you got a good set of results, but I can promise you, you guys are not going to have a party because you're going to be thinking, oh, well, what did we not do well, even though the results are, pretty strong. I think we've done, pretty well around making, delivering the internet to more Africans. Talk about, you know, um, active data users. More and more people are using the internet, working with, third parties to get handsets across into our markets. More people use the internet. Good progress there.
Yeah.
I think the area where I think we could have probably done a little bit better is really around, building the fintech ecosystem much faster. I mean, we've made good progress, but I would have liked us to be a little bit further down the road. But Serene and team will get us there, no doubt. And so we'll keep pushing. And, when you develop these strategies, it's not a hard stop. And you also, whilst you're executing, are dealing with the issues that we spoke about earlier, Mudio, which is the environment is changing.
Yeah.
The time we set Ambition 2025, we're just getting out of COVID. And then obviously the global macro has changed quite substantially. So I think we've done pretty well, to be honest with you. But as I said at MTN, nobody's ever happy.
As a CEO, right,
Yeah.
how do you cut out the noise? And when I say cut out the noise, I mean, we spoke at the beginning and you made comments about, some of the thinking that you almost have to piece together when you're running an organization like this. But in the face of a strategy like an Ambition 25, or now, looking to a 2030, right? Because there's things that will be happening in the moment, but you're still saying, no, guys, we need to go there,
No
right?
fun.
How do you keep your North Star when there's so much that will be maybe, I don't know if I can call them distractions,
Yeah.
because, I mean, you're in 16 countries, there's a lot that, can potentially derail.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I'm an engineer, so I kind of try and think about sometimes as physics is very helpful to think about the world we operate in.
Yeah.
And I'm always thinking about what is noise and what is signal.
Okay.
So I'm looking for signal as a CEO. Signal is this thing is real and it's important. So that's one framing of kind of thinking about things. What's signal, what's noise? And obviously, you yourself can't pick up all the things that are signal and noise, and therefore you rely on your team and people, you rely on your boards to guide you that that's a distraction. That, it sounds like an issue, but it's not really an issue.
Yeah.
And often that comes through experience. You have experienced hands who can just look at something and say, that's unimportant. I mean, one of the discussions we're having more, and we're borrowing from others who've said this before, so we're not being very original here, but you also have to think about what are one-way door decisions and two-way door decisions.
Okay.
The one-way door decisions, you make a decision and you can't come out of it. Two-way door decisions, you go in, you make a mistake, you come out, you can go in, come out as many
Okay,
times.
okay,
Two-way door decisions, it's not noise, but it's not consequential.
okay.
The one-way door decision
That's
is
where the stakes are high.
yeah. So as CEO, beyond the other stuff we spoke about, is I think you need to have the kind of mental aptitude to say what's signal, what's noise, what's a one-way door decision,
Yeah.
what's a two-way door decision.
Yeah,
Don't spend too much of your time on the noise. I mean, noise affects the environment, so if it's affecting the environment, you got to clear it out.
yeah,
But, you know, allocate and focus your resources on signal. And then on the one-way door decision, often what you have to do as a CEO is you have to slow people down. Everyone wants to go quickly.
yeah.
But if you make a mistake on a one-way door decision,
There's
you're
no way
gone.
out. Okay.
You can't come back.
Yeah,
And so actually you have to almost be the guy slowing people down on the one-way until you really thought this thing 360. And then on the two-way door decision, try and delegate as much as possible. Just like leave your team, empower them to make, because it's important to get progress,
yes,
but it's not life-threatening or life-changing or transformation or taking you off course, this North Star you've spoken about. So, yeah, so you just have to have all of these radar screens going on. And I've never flown a plane, but I think every CEO feels like they're the pilot in the Airbus A380.
yeah. The reason I asked that question is because you've recently announced a lot of leadership changes.
That's right.
You know, inside your structure.
Yeah.
How do you ensure? Because I'm sure part of it is making sure that you've got the right people to execute on the things that you were talking about earlier on, but also at the same time, the right people to keep you honest, you know, about we've said we want to go this way, we're going to make sure we're going this way. And then I think just finally, I guess making sure that you're putting people in the right positions. I don't know whether you see yourself when you're deciding on leadership changes like that. Of course, there's it's a decision that's being taken by the board, etc. But I'm sure you're thinking through it quite a bit.
Yeah.
Do you think of yourself as a coach, or do you think of yourself as a player on the field, like a captain?
Yeah, it's a great set of questions you asked there now. And I think of myself as a player coach. Huh?
Okay.
Yeah, so
So sort of Michael Jordan-ish, Kobe in a way. I think LeBron, they sort of did a bit of that.
yeah, you're making me think about what's an appropriate analogy. But the ones you've used so far, I'm not sure I'm anywhere in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, I see my leadership role as player coach.
Okay.
So, you're on the field yourself, but you have to stand back a little bit as well. You're not just a player. You're on the field, you roll up your sleeves, you're in the trenches, but you got to get out of the trenches from time and just look at the context, sometimes almost dispassionately.
Yeah.
Look at the opposition, since you want to use the sporting analogy.
Yeah.
Is, depending on the opposition and the context, you need different configurations of people. I mean, they can be the same people, but they're in different positions. And as you quite rightly said, we announced yesterday a bit of a management reshuffle. It's the very same players. You want to stay with the rugby analogy, it's a bit like Rassi Rasmus. He has 23 players who are going to go on the field.
Yeah.
And they may play different roles to the last time.
Yeah.
Because it's contextual,
Yeah.
it's situational,
Yeah.
and it's aligned to the strategy that you want.
Yeah.
The bomb squad in rugby comes at a particular time to have impact.
Yeah.
So that's why I use the kind of player, so you make changes to create value.
Yeah.
You make changes because you want to win.
Yeah.
And, just at MTN, super blessed with a really good leadership bench that we have. Largely homegrown, huh?
Yeah.
And obviously, with any business, you do need to sprinkle it with people from outside, like myself. I mean, I'm not homegrown here, but I appreciate the strength of MTN's growing its own timber, because we come back to that signal, noise, experience kind of thing, it's because you've seen it before. But you also need some fresh eyes who may look at a situation differently. So coming back to your question, I mean, we made these changes there to support the strategy.
Yeah.
The strategy we see beyond 2025. And we have the very best players in the various positions that we've chosen.
Yeah.
And I'm player coach, yeah? And then, the board for me, are they're guiding and supporting these decisions that I propose, and they will challenge, and then we come to an agreement on the context of these. So all of these, changes that we made at the management level, fully supported by the board. And I thank the board for entrusting me, with the journey ahead.
Geopolitics,
Yeah,
that's a big thing
Yeah.
in the MTN world. We spoke about economies and macro
yeah,
earlier on, but informing a lot of that
Yeah.
is, the geopolitics.
Yeah.
We've seen how MTN has, benefited or got it burnt over the history of its operations because of, geopolitical, factors and issues. What's informing your picture right now? What's, signal, to use your analogy earlier on, what are you actually paying attention to? What are things that are saying, okay, fine, that's an obvious thing that as MTN we need to pay attention to, whereas other things are maybe more on the periphery, but I'm just going to make sure that, we have them on lock.
Yeah, I mean, we come back to the A380 analogy. Huh?
Yeah.
So you got a dashboard with many indicators, and you're trying to assess them in a composite way.
Yep.
I guess if I pick 5 kind of geopolitical issues that are front and center, I think the kind of geopolitical conditions that are at play right now, kind of globally. I mean, trade tariffs, interactions between different markets. With the US, you have to pay attention to that. You have to pay attention to where there's conflict and the consequences of those conflict. We have conflict on the African continent, huh?
Yep.
So there's often the sense that the conflict is really only in other geographies. Sudan, we operate in Sudan. So assessing, where are the war conditions. I think you also are looking, in particular, on technology developments.
Yeah.
There are massive developments in technology, AI, for example. What are the direction of travel around technology? Who has access to the most advanced chipsets? And how does that impact us at MTN?
Yeah.
And then supply chains.
Yeah.
What is developing around supply chains because of, let's say, export controls and the impact that they have, supply chains, access to semiconductor, advanced chipsets, and so forth. You've got to pay attention to that in this industry that we're in. And then you've got to also pay attention to pools of capital, because we're a capital-intensive business. Where you're going to get... So these are all manner of issues that you've got to kind of see the direct and second-order effects of them on your business.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, actually, you don't know the truth. So you have to run a series of scenarios. So what I've been saying to people is that, you've got to plan, have this North Star that you and I spoke about earlier, but be maximum agile. Be maximum agile. And what gives you the agility is you're always looking at scenarios. What if this happens?
Yeah.
What's the probability of that happening?
Yeah.
But what I say to people more is, what's interesting, certainly for me, as I reflect, is the things that you thought could happen once in 100 years, the so-called 1 in 100, they're happening more frequently. And I think you see some of them from a climate change perspective coming through. So when you're running a business like MTN, the thing that you also have to be looking at is the risks that look like 1 in 100. What happened to the Naira in late 2023, 2024, 5 years back, you would say the Naira is not going to be at 1,500 for sure. Somebody would have said that's 1 in 100.
Yeah.
The naira was 450 oddish,
Yeah.
and that you should anticipate that the naira will never be devalued. That was the conventional wisdom.
Yeah.
So I say to people, you've got to give a lot of thought and pay attention to the so-called tail risks, the ones that have high impact, low probability,
Yeah.
because those ones can actually, take your business out of the water. So, but don't be paranoid, but just understand, what that, could do. And in this geopolitical kind of context we are in, there's a lot more of that I think happens. We are in a state of constant change and having to assess. And my first thing in the morning is I look at news flow
Yeah.
to figure out what's going on.
Yeah. And I can imagine that there's a lot to pay attention to,
Yeah.
when you are waking up in the morning like that. Sort of tied to the geopolitical aspect, at least from a perception point of view, is some of the legal challenges that MTN has faced, right? And I say it that way because the different cases that you guys face are almost exclusively outside of South Africa, and the ones that people are paying attention to, what's happening, there, and once again, signal versus
Noise.
versus noise.
Yeah.
That's one, and then two, um, is there any prospect of a resolution somewhere down the line? I think that's one of the things people would really, to say, are we gonna, you know, be done with this anytime soon?
No, it's interesting that you raise that point because it's a point that's obviously we take very seriously.
Yeah,
And to your more general point, these are matters not really on the African continent, to be clear.
yeah,
I mean, they're matters related to our presence in the Middle East. And before I answer that, I think it's quite important to know what is the position strategically for MTN. And we took that position probably 5 years ago that we would orderly exit the Middle East,
yeah,
starting with the consolidated subsidiaries, because we believe that we don't have a unique advantage of being in the Middle East. We understand Africa well, we know how to allocate capital well, we know how to manage the risks well, we know how to engage geopolitically in Africa well. We took 5 years ago that view, that orderly exit, and we've done pretty well in doing that. It's not easy to do the exits, sounds easier. It's harder than it sounds, let's put it that way. So we abandoned Syria after being frustrated by former President Assad's regime.
yeah,
They made it difficult for us to operate. We reserved the rights. You're looking at that situation today, and you're saying to yourself, well, sanctions have been removed. Would you go back? No, we're not going to go back. There's no chance we'll go back. We had to exit Afghanistan, very difficult. The Taliban were coming into power.
yeah,
We didn't want to be caught in that situation.
yeah,
We sold Afghanistan for almost next to nothing. Yemen we sold for $1, okay? Because we said to ourselves, this is not a place where we have capability, we have unique skills, and there's no advantage for us to be here. And 2018, the snapback sanctions US in May 2018 came, and so, and the SWIFT was removed around Iran. So Iran was kind of like a stuck situation.
yeah,
No capital in, no capital out, and very mindful of sanctions regimes and our compliance with it and so forth. We have a compliance team sitting in Dubai that are actively just checking, where are sanctioned entities and individuals, and we keep a healthy distance from all of that.
yeah,
So I give that context because I think it's important in terms of how I'm answering your questions, on the litigation matters. And I think there's three of them that are important,
yeah,
for our stakeholders. The first is the Turkcell matter, which is in the SA courts. More recently, the Supreme Court of Appeal upheld our position
yeah,
in terms of how this matter should be heard under Iranian law. It upheld EAC's position around jurisdiction. It was 3-2 on jurisdiction, and what is the law applicable 5-0 in terms of Iranian law. And so we've made an appeal to the Constitutional Court. So let's see where that is going.
Yeah.
And this is a matter that's been going on probably since 2012. So that's Turkcell there. And it's related to our license getting into Iran in 2005.
Yeah.
Then there is the second set of matters, the ATA cases, the Anti-Terrorism Act cases. There's 5 of them, and they came about circa around 2019. And I mean, I think it's worthwhile for you and your audiences to go and see, what types of ATA cases that are ongoing.
Yeah.
And they touch on some multinationals in different industries and so forth. So we have those to deal with, and there's 5 of them, and the various developments. Importantly, the ATA cases under kind of the American statutes, you have to prove jurisdiction if you're a non-US person like
Yeah.
ourselves,
Yeah.
and then you argue the merits. Was there any wrongdoing or not? So kind of summarizing, we kind of been in this jurisdictional phase of can it be heard or can it not be heard, if I kind of try and simplify it. So they have not been tested on the merits of has there been any wrongdoing and engaging in that part. And these things take time. Yesterday we spoke with the release of our results about the request for information from the United States Department of Justice,
Yeah.
which we are cooperating on a voluntary basis. I think it's important that when they do these grand jury investigations, there is a normal process of doing it. You have to be served. Sometimes there is kind of mutual agreement between the ministries, departments of justice, between the base country, which would be South Africa, versus obviously the US. And we said, no, we are going to fully cooperate on a voluntary basis.
Yeah.
It is, of course, a confidential process, so there's always a limit to what you can say and disclose, even in a forum and a platform like this. But I think there's some super important points to be clear about.
Yeah.
As I said, it's a confidential process.
Yeah.
They have not accused us of any wrongdoing.
Yeah.
They've asked us for requests for information.
Yeah.
And the final point, which is super important, as we look at the request for information, these is substantially the same issues in the ATA case.
Okay.
That's our read of it.
Yeah.
As we obviously in this process have sight of the request of information. So we are working with the Department of Justice, agreeing kind of the guardrails of how we engage, because our position is, these matters are of a nature that, we will cooperate with and engage them through our U.S. counsel and also our teams. So those are the 3 buckets: the Turkcell matter, the ATA case, and the development around the Department of Justice. I think what's also important is these are legal processes that are time indeterminate. You can't tell how slowly or quickly they move.
Yeah.
They can take years, and we'll continue to work constructively with the judicial systems wherever we need to, and tell our story as we know. And so we just want to be clear around those 3 particular cases, and as you say, or situations, and they deal with substantively kind of issues in the Middle East. We don't have those, on the rest of the continent.
One of the things I'm quite curious about, Ralph, and I think it ties back to a lot of the, conversation we've had through today
Yeah.
about leadership and being in your position is when you're dealing with cases like this, when you're dealing with regulatory matters, when we are navigating the geopolitical space, right? How are you keeping it together, right? And I say keeping it together because we've seen that in 2025, it's very easy, for what seems to be a private sector matter globally to now spill over and become almost a geopolitical hot potato. So how do you, because I was just thinking about it when I read the sense around your results, the fact that there's briefing of, the South African authorities around what's happening, etc. So I guess it's just that navigating aspect where it's a private MTN matter, but at the same time, you're also navigating to say how do you make sure that none of this either spills out or becomes
Yeah.
bigger than it's meant to be.
Yeah, look, I mean, when you're a big multinational, I'm not just MTN, but all the multinationals is, you know, you can't avoid being kind of in the kind of geopolitical space and interacting with the states.
Yeah,
When I say the states, I mean, nation states.
yeah,
It becomes super critical that you have an ability to engage with the state because of the nature. And you think about the service that we provide as MTN, telecommunication. It's actually an essential service in today's world.
yeah,
It's almost as people say, it's almost a human right. But we put capital, so our shareholders want us to earn a return. We can't give it away for free. But it's you're using frequencies, airwaves that belong to a nation. You get regulated, you pay prices, you pay for your spectrum and all of that, regulatory fees and so forth. So you have to be sensitive to the nation state, just purely by the industry. I think what is more, as a group CEO, what I reflect on more is that there is an enormous global, you know, I don't want to use the word fight, but maybe it is about supremacy on artificial intelligence.
yeah,
So we're living in that world on who is going to own and control the most modern technologies that we see,
yeah,
semiconductors.
huge issue.
It's fueling capital markets. It's fueling geopolitics. And so we are in a kind of a geopolitically sensitive industry anyway,
Yeah,
by the nature, as I said, we're using the airwaves, we pay for spectrum and all of that. You're engaged in a nation state. But we are now in this era of, who's going to be superior. I mean, we're in a little patch here in Africa with and mindful of kind of East and West dynamics.
yeah,
So, you just have to figure out how you navigate that. But the most important thing is engage, be transparent, and tell your story. The story of MTN is that what we are obsessed with as a company and the people of this company is to drive digital inclusion, financial inclusion across Africa.
yeah,
That is what we obsess. We love to just connect people,
yeah,
let people get on with their lives. But because we're big, 300 million customers, Africa's largest telecommunications company, we like to believe we're Africa's most important company. So anytime I'll brag here, I really do believe we're Africa's most important company.
yeah,
It's not possible that you don't have any nexus towards engaging with the state.
yeah,
And it's not only us. I mean, you think about the big tech companies in the US, the same, the big tech companies
Yeah.
in China and Europe.
yeah,
So we're not alone in that dynamic. But to be clear, that's our passion is, how do we get another 200 million Africans connected to the internet? That's the journey that excites us to 2040. Yeah?
All right. Before I touch on the next 200 million people, you spoke about the AI aspect,
Yeah,
right? Where do you see that discussion, I guess, pushing or evolving over time? How do you feel about Africa's place, right, when it comes to the AI discussion? I've spoken to investment bankers, for example, that are backing, telco infrastructure projects, and they tell me, listen, because of the developmental agenda, the base thing is let's at least make sure people are connected. This thing of trying to put down $500 billion down for, AI and all of that stuff, that's a higher order aspect that can only come if you've taken care of, some of the basic needs that are on the continent. But I'm keen to get, some of your thoughts around that because I'm sure that then informs part of your own even capital allocation, framework going forward, because AI is fueling data usage, it's fueling data center usage, cloud computing, all of this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. No, look, I mean, I reflect on that very deeply. And to me, it's not an or, I think it's an and.
Okay.
So we must invest in building the digital infrastructure, the pipes that enable people to be connected. You know our own aspirations about fiber across the continent and so forth. Our digital infrastructure strategy is talking to exactly that thing that
Yeah.
you just mentioned, which is, base connectivity. Let's get the plumbing in place, and that and many people can afford. I thought you want to talk about satellites as well, but
Yes, they also, feed into that. Yeah.
absolutely. So you're absolutely right. The core connectivity thing is super important. But I don't think we as Africans must sit back and say, what we're seeing in the global north, let's leave it to them. Let's leave it to them in this, arms race around AI, digestion of languages into kind of natural languages into these LLMs, to create kind of a native engagement of humans, with AI, and solutions come out in a generative sense. We can't leave that to say, well, that's the global north. I think if we do, there's a huge risk of what I talk about as creating a digital underclass of Africans.
Okay.
And we must
That doesn't sound good.
so we must resist that thought process that says, well, this is a global north issue. Because at the pace at which these technologies are growing, in 3 to 5 years, we could feel like we're a decade or two behind. And then what? And then what do you do with this youth bulge you have in Africa? 2050, what's the largest workforce that the world will have? It'll be
Africa.
Africans.
Yeah.
So we must be obsessed and paranoid about not being left behind.
Yeah.
And therefore, I tell my colleagues, I'm at night school, reskilling myself as a CEO to try and understand what's going on. I'm figuring out how does VO3 and Gemini 2.5, as an example,
Yeah.
all work out, and how can that make me a more effective CEO?
Yeah.
How can technologies of that nature make us more productive? What products and new solutions can create? So I think we need to be a little bit paranoid about that, because if we're not careful, you can end up having what I call the Kodak moments, where you got a really great business, you got a great model, you got your position in the market, and all of a sudden you're not needed.
Yeah.
And Kodak missed that moment when cell phones probably moved from the kind of 2G to 3G era, was that inflection point where, man, you don't need Polaroid anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think if we as Africans, or more generally in the telecommunications space, don't see this as potentially a Kodak moment, I think we're asleep at the wheel properly.
You mentioned earlier on that MTN, in your view, is the most important African company.
Yeah.
You're close to 300 million customers, 298 million to be exact. That means outside of China and India, you're probably the biggest telecoms operator in the world, if my numbers serve me correctly. How do you bring firstly, how does it feel to lead what is essentially, a big country, right? And then secondly, how do you bring the influence of an MTN to bear when it comes to dealing with the issues that you're talking about now, about making sure that Africa doesn't get left behind in some of these important, discussions that are in the world, like AI, like, those types of things.
Look, I mean it with all humility that I think MTN is the most important company on the African continent, because we're at the forefront of driving digital inclusion. And my belief is that for Africa to fully develop its potential, and a lot of that potential is in the youth. That potential is in spaces like agriculture. It's in spaces like mining. It's in spaces like education. It's in spaces like health. It's in spaces like logistics. All of these things interconnect to create economies. But the backbone of that is telecommunications infrastructure.
Yeah.
And we are the lead of that, and I say that humbly. And we're not doing it all alone. There are others who are doing it, with us. I think the other thing that's special about MTN is we were a multinational birthed in Africa. Some of the multinationals that you see were not birthed in Africa, and maybe big Pan-African. Maybe there's a bank out there that's got a blue color that was birthed in Africa. So So that's the genesis of why I think MTN is the most important, because we are connecting people, connecting businesses, and we're doing that. I must just check up on your numbers on, outside India and China where we fit in, and I'm sure, you're probably right. I just don't keep those numbers. But, as we're getting to 300 million, as you say, it's a huge country, huh? It's a massive country, if you want to think it in those terms. But for me, it's a huge responsibility, and it
Yeah.
has to be taken with a lot of humility. In that MTN success, firstly, rests on those who came before us.
Yeah.
MTN is 30 years old. There have been MTNers who've built this company from scratch, and were putting base stations long before I was here, and the team I lead were here. I think we also have to be grateful to the nation states which we operate in,
Yeah.
who license us. We have to be grateful to our customers because they have choice. They're deciding to choose us. And we have to also be grateful to our people that work with us at MTN. They don't have to work at MTN. They choose to be part of this mission, because the work we do really feels of a missionary zeal because of some of the challenges that we face from time to time. So it's a huge responsibility, but it's exciting.
Yeah.
I think you want to live an exciting life and also have a life of impact.
Yeah.
We feel we're being impactful in the nation states we operate in, because you see just how people feel and their lives are changed by having access to great connectivity, having access to financial services, having a Momo account, And what's interesting is the empowerment of women with Momo is a very interesting story, which we'll discuss in the Y'ello Chair at some point in time. So, yeah, and we're just super excited, huh? Super excited.
I want to end off today's discussion coming back to the sports analogies.
Yeah.
And I'm going to use a sport that you tend to reference
Yeah.
all the time. I know you did, some national service for cricket once upon a time. So to use a cricket analogy, right? Currently for MTN, what is a T20? What is a battle? And versus what is the test match for you? What is the war? Right? When MTN says it's going to war, what is the war that is being fought, and how do you define that we've won the war whenever we come to the end of it, versus what is a T20, which is, I guess, your daily battles?
But you normally ask easy questions for the last one. But you've taken me to a sport I love, and you're bringing war analogies and telecommunications and so forth. Yeah, look, with the cricket, the 5-day game is kind of thinking about war. You win 5-day games when you don't have to win every battle,
Yeah.
but there are moments that are important that will decide whether you win a 5-day test.
Yeah.
And I often say to people, you don't have to win every battle, you just have to win the war.
Yeah.
There are wars that have 19 battles, and all you need to do is win the last battle, and then you win the war. So that's kind of how I think about this kind of 5-day issue versus the. But let me simplify your analogies, because they could be quite complex, and say your T20s, what are we focused on in the short term?
Yeah.
And test match is what are we focused. The long term is to build 3 very valuable platforms of connectivity, fintech and digital infrastructure,
Okay.
that serve the people of Africa in a kind of socio-economic, powerful way.
Yeah.
And we do it in a way that, for our providers of capital, we deliver returns so we can get more capital to invest and connect more Africans.
Yeah.
That's the mission and zeal, the North Star. From where we are to get there, obviously, we've got to kind of navigate quite a bit. And you've got to deal with the headwinds, you've got to deal with the issues that confront you, you've got to deal with, geopolitics, you've got to deal with litigation matters and so forth. But you're keeping your eye on that 5 days. And the kind of the kind of T20 at the near term is kind of sustaining operational momentum that we see in the business. Just looking at every week, are we meeting what we said? What were the recharges last week versus the budget? Because to meet the, long term, you gotta deliver on the short term as well.
Yeah.
But make sure that the kind of what I said, the one way door decisions, you're thinking about them with a long term mindset.
Okay.
Okay. You got to keep about those with a long-term mindset and allocate your people and your resources to that in a way that you remain committed and firm to. So I hope that answers your cricket analogy.
No, it does.
Anyway.
I'll give you your light question.
Yeah.
Having joined MTN, coming out of financial services, what is the unexpected fun that you've had being at MTN?
Somebody, when I joined said to me, I can't guarantee you happiness, but I can guarantee you won't be bored. I've been surprised by how I'm not bored. The human condition requires boredom from time to time, excitement and boredom. At MTN, I've not experienced much boredom. And it's, as I said, the key thing here is you're working with people who kind of, as I said, the missionary zeal. I've worked elsewhere. I've never seen anything like that.
Okay.
And just a pure love of this continent. You see what I wear? I mean, this is my tailor, Nigeria in Lagos.
Yeah.
And I wasn't born in Nigeria, but tomorrow I'll wear something else.
How did this come about, by the way?
Oh, you want to know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
because I watched. I feel like I watched the transition happening because I've covered MTN
For a long time.
for a while.
Yeah, I was a suited financial services guy, and I arrived here. And I went to Nigeria for my first board meeting. I think it was the 7th of April 2017. I've been to Nigeria many times then.
Yeah.
And I met this guy, a guy called Tunde Falaweo, used to be on the board. And I said, hey, you look very smart. Huh? I said, do you want to meet my tailor? I said, yeah. I said, no, bring him at lunchtime. Yeah, he rocks up there. He's been my tailor since. And I said, look, and also it's part of feeling the pride of being African.
Yeah.
Wearing the clothing of the people of this continent that I love so much. So, yeah, and it's much cooler. We operate in some interesting climates where it's quite humid. And I feel much more comfortable with this. But it's also an expression of the pride I have for being an African.
All right. And that has filtered through the rest of the ranks, because I have noticed that people do wear quite a lot of African attire at MTN.
I didn't ask them to. There's no KPI around it. But I think they also, like me, feel more comfortable in it and an expression of our love of the continent.
All right. So, on that African note, that's where we end off today's discussion. It has been a really great one, Ralph, just
Appreciate
picking your brain around some of the big things that are out there. For those that are out there, I would say my two biggest takeaways is firstly, the type of decision making. I think you spoke about the one-way decisions and the two-way decisions. Never thought about that. One set is consequential, the other set less so, and you can go in and out. And Ralph was talking about the fact that you have to slow down. He likes to slow down people, because people like to rush into things, and it's like, no, because it's one way in and there's no way out. It's almost like that analogy that they speak about, the story of the battalion that arrives and then they burn the ships, and the only way out is to win the battle. And then at the end, just talking about I guess Africa's place when it comes to the AI discussion, and how Africans, African companies, African players, African minds can actually make themselves relevant
That's right.
in that discussion, because he says it's not an either or, you can have an and.
Yeah.
Do the connectivity layer, but
Yeah.
there is the ability to also contribute, to that, higher order, the platforms, the LLMs, all of that. So really appreciate your time on this, Ralph.
Thanks so much, Mudio. It's been great.
All right. So that's been it for this edition of the Y'ello Chair, your link to the African continent. Let us know what you think of this discussion in the comments.